Before we dive into the most current up-to-date lore for our next 3 Traitor Legions, I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who watched the first video and showed their support by subbing, liking, sharing and commenting. It's a lot to work full-time, have a family with all the time constraints that brings, and then also do YouTube. So when everybody showed their support in the last video, it honestly just means a lot. So thank you so much. Now if you haven't watched the video preceding this one, it was uploaded a few days ago and I've linked it in the description for you. We've so far covered the current agenda and goings on within the Emperor's Children, Iron Warriors and Night Lord's Legions. Today we're going to discuss in detail the aims as well as current happenings within the next 3 legions, followed by the final 3 on our next upload. It's been suggested in our Discord that we make a playlist out of mini-series such as this, which I think is a great idea. So we'll be sure to do that for these 3 videos, so those who want to can have a binge watch. World Eaters. Witch ice gathers within holding pens of the deranged, whilst those unfortunates born with the warp's touch awake from panicked, vivid nightmares of slaughter. As sanity quickly ebbs away from these unfortunates, they each repeat the same message, separated by vast swathes of space as they are. 8 weeks, 8 days, 8 hours, until the Red Angels return. You see, the demented, murder-intoxicated Primarch of the 12th has returned to the realm of men, and he once again commands the fealty of his Gloriana-class flagship, the Conqueror. Ancient now, steeped in the murder of millennia, the vessel's one and only mistress, Latara Saren, has since become one with her charge, her corpse nestled within an ancient command throne. Captain Latara's spirit, free to roam the Conqueror at will, has patiently, faithfully, awaited the return of Angorn, master of the Bloody 12th. Ages past, the Gloriana-class battleship stood as a symbol of a young Imperium's might, but now little from that era is recognisable of the Conqueror, naught but its impressive size, as well as its signature, Ursa's Claw. For this vast leviathan of a vessel now prowls at the head of the mightiest World Eater gathering since the First War for Armageddon, some 500 years prior. This is important to know, for not only does the Conqueror pose a formidable threat within the tumultuous throes of void combat, but it has been a prize and even a mark of status within the World Eater's Legion since Angron's ignominious defeat at the hands of Sanguinius during the Siege of Terra. Though not one of Angron's sons could hope to best their father in combat, there does exist an undeniable level of command prestige for the World Eater who manages to attain his flagship, whilst the Lord of Blood and Slaughter is otherwise contained within the warp itself. And so does Koselax the Forsworn nurse lofty aspirations of command among the 12th Legion, for not only did he single-handedly acquire the Conqueror from his predecessor, but through tremendous willpower, if not sheer bloody-minded determination, the erstwhile Sergeant turned Chaos Lord has united one of the most numerous World Eater forces in recent millennia. Within the Conqueror's loading bays, the colours and heraldry of hundreds of individual warbands lay scattered in a sea of not only red, but the colours of Imperial turncoats even, and those warbands who have taken to personalise their own armour following the days of the heresy. Proving a capable leader, Koselax's strength, ironically, lies more within his mind than it does his sword arm. After decades, if not centuries, of forging alliances, as well as closely managing the more psychopathic of his brothers, Koselax was on the brink of launching his own bloody crusade against the Imperium. However, just as he'd done 10 millennia prior, Angron would prove the downfall of his sons once again. Upon the cusp of victory, Koselax and his bodyguard, poised to slay the mortal remains of Latara Saren upon the Conqueror, the Red Angel materialise upon the Conqueror's true bridge, swiftly slaying Koselax's bodyguards before reclaiming the Conqueror once more. For Koselax, this was but another insult by a distant, uncaring father, one who had carelessly led his own children into damnation before disappearing, forcing his sons to navigate their new, torturous existence on their own. Though now Angron has returned, Koselax's carefully laid plans are at risk of amounting to naught. whilst countless void ships flock to Angorn's location, and therefore by default expand Kosselak's own armada, the Red Angel spends their lives carelessly. For all his patient planning, Kosselak's army of berserkers is at risk of degenerating into yet another mindless braying horde of madmen, any sense of tactical awareness dulled by Angorn's close proximity. For the presence of the Red Angel amid his sons whips the Legion into a berserk fury. Not only do the butcher's nails hammer within the skulls of each, screaming for murder, but many World Eaters seek naught but to fight at the side of their estranged father, even if this experience ends in their demise. Can you imagine how frustrated, not to mention resentful, Kosselaks must feel at this moment in time? During the Siege of Terra, Kosselaks held the rank of Sergeant. To have survived to this point, within the most violent Chaos faction, let alone risen to such esteem, is a tremendous achievement. But it is all under threat now. Whilst this power dynamic plays out, Kosselak seeking to undermine his father's influence upon his brothers, yet another of the Emperor's loyal Primarchs has returned to defend the realms of men. The noble hunter, Lionel Johnson, once more stalks the stars, seeking out the greatest threats within Imperium Nihilus. In fact, the famed Slayer of Beasts has defeated his most powerful adversary yet. For upon the corrupted ruins of hallowed Caliban itself did the lion skewer his cornate brother through the sternum and out his neck, before violently bashing in Angron's skull using the Emperor's shield. But we know 8 weeks, 8 days, and 8 hours remain until once again the Red Angel rises, and something tells me he'll be baying for the Angel of Caliban's blood. In the meantime, however, one does wonder how Kosselak the Forsworn will use this reprieve from his father. Death Guard. It could perhaps be said that Mortarion's sons are the most organised, influential Chaos Legion active throughout the galaxy at this moment, the only other consideration for this title being Abaddon's own Black Legion. In fact, it is Mortarion alone, out of all his treacherous brothers, that have sought to pillage Guilliman's realm of Ultramar, who has actually established a foothold within that hallowed area of space. By utilising nigh unstoppable plagues, reorganising his 14th Legion, as well as summoning demonic allies, Mortarion and Typhus both have recently proven their generalship, matching wits against the sons of Guilliman within their own realm. Not only this, but in a duel between Rebute and Mortarion, the Avenging Sun was struck down, then infected by the God-blight plague, dying at Mortarion's feet. If it wasn't for a timely intervention by the Divine Emperor of Mankind himself, Guilliman would have stayed dead. However, before Mortarion's very eyes, Guilliman's blackened skin sloughed away, revealing fresh, healthy veins, and power began to emit a telltale buzz throughout the armour of fate. Given life once more by his father's warped power, Rebute Guilliman would not only stare down a helpless Mortarion, but would in fact threaten Nurgle itself. Displeased, if not intimidated, Nurgle would recall his demon Primarch before the Death Guard withdrew from their current war zone completely. Now, currently within the latest lore, we have no update on Mortarion's well-being. Displeased with him as Nurgle is, we do know that the forces of the Death Guard still have viable options within Guilliman's realm, even with the loss of Mortarion from the field of battle. Captain Typhus, a brilliant tactician as well as devotee of grandfather Nurgle, had been waging his own campaign throughout Ultramar simultaneously, begrudgingly working underneath his father. No, the true reason the forces of Nurgle withdrew immediately following Mortarion's defeat is that the remaining 3 Chaos Gods, that is Khorne, Tzeentch and Slaanesh, had become concerned with Nurgle's new holdings within the material realm, and so decided to attack the Scourge Stars. As we stated in part 1 of this series, the eddies of the warp are in constant flux. This includes the waxing and waning of particular Chaos deities' influence. Called the Great Game, the 4, as well as their champions, constantly do battle against one another to attempt to gain the upper hand, and when one makes major gains ahead of the other 3, as Nurgle have managed within the Scourge Stars, they are often kept in check by the remaining 3. And so, we know Typhus has naught but contempt for his father, seeking to further grandfather Nurgle's ambitions in real space, whilst his Primarch Mortarion no doubt is forced to endure some unknowable punishment at the hands of his own Dark Master. Thousand Sons. The Thousand Sons Legion, namely Magnus the Red, have sought to bleed their ancient enemies over the millennia preceding the failed Siege of Terra. Most recently, the Dark Angels, Space Wolves, and even Grey Knights chapters have all suffered at the hands of the 15th Legion. Forever scheming, reading the skeins of fate to better serve his own ends, Magnus has not been idle upon his planet of sorcerers. Magnus would usher in an age of despair and suffering upon the unfortunate inhabitants of the Fenris system, though he wasn't alone, for the forces of Nurgle, and even the cunning Alpha Legion, sought to disrupt the Space Wolves' home system. For too long had the proud sons of Rus been allowed to play the hero, whilst the galaxy's true heroes, those warriors from an era long forgotten, were forced to scrape a living within the depths of hell itself. Magnus, forever seething at the betrayal he suffered by the hands of the Space Wolves during the Horus Heresy, finally had planned an all-out invasion upon the sacred, ancient soil of Fenris itself. Emerging from orbit, 9 massive constructs called Silver Towers made planetfall upon Fenris. Constructed from the remains of shattered Tizca itself, these warp-fueled constructs were kept operational by powerful sorcerers aboard, whilst their payloads, demons, rubric marines, as well as demonic engines, awaited their imminent landing in order to punish the proud sons of Rus. And so would Magnus' revenge be visited upon the Space Wolves 10,000 years after his initial disgrace. But whilst this occurred through the trickery of Cinch, were the Dark Angels misled into believing the Space Wolves had attacked one of their outposts. So, gathering 14 chapters in total, the Unforgiven would also join the fray, intent on visiting revenge upon the Space Wolves, ancient blood rivals of theirs. Fortunately for the Sons of Rus, this deceit was discovered, and Azrael's coalition of allies pointed towards the real foe. However, not before the Dark Angels chapter master had overseen a brief bombardment by this very same force upon the world of Fenris, further contributing to the death toll as well as planetary destruction below. The battle upon Fenris was in full swing. Magnus strode through the battlefield, laying low Grey Knight champions and even destroying battle barges in orbit above. Such is the cataclysmic power of the demon Primarch gifted by the god of sorcery. It would take a combined attack by the purest of Grey Knights, paired with the fury of Logan Grimnar, armed as he is with a corn-tainted blade, to finally lay low Magnus the Red. But such destruction has been wrought upon this chapter's homeworld that its ecosystem, as well as tribal peoples, will likely forever be tainted by chaos. Though remember, the champions of Cinch possess schemes within schemes, and not only Fenris was racked by war during the Thousand Sons invasion, there were 3 inhabited planets within the Fenris system prior to Magnus' campaign against the Space Wolves. These are Fenris, Frostheim, and Midgardia. Upon the latter, Magnus would infect the world's tribal populace with a virulent plague he'd acquired from Nurgle, corrupting the planet to the core. It was Logan Grimnar himself who gave the sanction of Exterminatus, dooming over 6 billion of his own people to death by his word. However, with the fate of Midgardia's unwitting populace sealed, the power generated by this betrayal and suffering allowed the demon Primarch Magnus to translate the planet of the sorcerers, otherwise known as Sortiarius, into real space, perched above the ruined remains of ancient Prospero. Following this particularly bloody campaign within the Fenris system, Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade would cause reality to split, forming the Cicatrix Maledictum. In the wake of such an age-defining calamity, Magnus again nurtured his own ambitions, attempting to succeed where his own father had failed millennia prior. The Emperor's ultimate goal had always been to hasten mankind's evolution into a psychic race, one impervious to the malign promises and taint of chaos. Magnus, on the other hand, wished to hasten mankind's evolution, but not, we can imagine, in a way that could be beneficial to humanity. This would be carried out through a great rite called the Ritual of the Damned, and it would take place on the demon world of Sortiarius. For the first time since its formation, the planet of sorcerers would suffer the tread of loyalist footfalls, with the Dark Angels and Grey Knights again forming a joint task force to combat the threat Magnus and his legion posed. Loyalist Marines would suffer extreme losses, for the very demon-populated ecosystem upon Sortiarius existed to repel invaders. The resistance conjured by Magnus minions was so aggressive and so numerous in its banding against these intruders that Magnus could not be brought to combat. Finally, a mass retreat had to be sounded, but not before the Dark Angels' force sabotaged a building whose purpose was to ward off orbital strikes on the demon world. In the haste of retreat, demons and sorcerous energy felling yet more loyalist Astartes, many Space Marines died covering the retreat of their allies, whilst many more were taken prisoner. Who can say what fate these unfortunates will endure, but for the 1,000 sons of all legions to now possess so much prized gene seed can only lead to further catastrophes for mankind. With orbital strikes now an option, the target site of Magnus' ritual was fired upon, though given the distance from which the Imperium's retribution takes place, no loyalist son of the Emperor can say whether it was effective. Make sure you join us in a few days for the final installment of this video trilogy. We cover the Sons of Horus come Black Legion, the Word Bearers, and finally the secretive Alpha Legion. You can hop on over to our community Discord and chat hobby and lore with us. It's starting to build in numbers and honestly has some great people in it. I'm really enjoying interacting with you guys, and I dream of creating a positive 40k community, a safe place for everyone no matter your country of residence. And this of course is free. We refuse to hide our main community behind a paywall. Now if you do wish to support our efforts financially for as little as $2 US, Patreon nets you free stuff and helps us to create more content with better gear and editing programs. There are 3 tiers of support available, with the greatest including high-res artwork for a fraction of the price you'd pay anywhere else. If you'd like to show your support, just follow the link in the description to see what's available. For those looking to make their next hobby purchase, then doing so through our link to Gap Games is another excellent way to help us out. And of course, if you're enjoying our content, please consider hitting the like, notification and sub buttons. This is a really good free way to support the channel and tells YouTube's algorithm to share our videos with more people. Thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate your support. Until next time, take it easy and have a good one.